The following is a JourneyWise Network production.
Hey friends, this is the Choosing Cheer podcast, and I'm Nicolet, your host. I'm so excited that you have joined us today as we journey along to Choosing Cheer. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by my friend and former teammate, Haleigh Mullens, and she shares about her life as a wife of an NFL quarterback. Haleigh talks about releasing her control to God and His plan for her life. And it made me think about one of my favorite passages from Acts chapter 16, where Paul is setting out on his missionary journey and he comes to a decision point. He has a plan of where he wants to go. And in chapter 16, verse 7, we see that the Spirit told him not to go there. And so Paul changes direction. He changes his plan. And I'm a planner. I like to have a plan. And so when we talk about control, I like to know that I can have a plan and know where I'm going. And Paul had a plan. But what we see about Paul in this passage is that he had a plan, but he held his plan with open hands, ready and willing to adapt and change as the Spirit was leading him. So let's talk today to Haleigh Mullens about trusting in God's plan. Hey friends, I'm Nicolet with the Choosing Cheer podcast. We're going to talk about how to find the joy of Jesus in the midst of the struggle. On the podcast, I'm joined by my friends who I have witnessed choosing cheer in their lives. And my hope is that their stories will encourage you the same way that they have encouraged me. Today, I have my friend Haleigh Mullens with me on the podcast. And a fun fact about Haleigh and I is that we cheered together at the University of Southern Mississippi a good little while ago now. Haleigh, it has been. And so I had the privilege of getting to spend a lot of my days with Haleigh in cheer practice and all the things that go along with that, with being a college cheerleader. And Haleigh, your joy was always infectious to me. Y'all, we would be out there like running laps and stuff, and Haleigh's just smiling, just doing her thing, always joyful. And so it's such an honor for me to get to have you on today, because I think you embody so many of the things that we talk about on our time together here on the podcast. And so thank you for sharing joy then and sharing joy now. And Haleigh, I'm going to let you tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. I hate that I haven't seen you in so long just because
I
of
know.
our lives. You just end up everywhere. But this has been so great to catch up. I'm Haleigh Mullens. I'm from Ocean Springs, Mississippi. Went to Southern Miss, cheered with Nicolet, had the best time. Love Southern. It was such a great time there. I'm married to my husband, Nick Mullens. We've been married for 5 years. We have 2 sweet little boys.
They're
Luke,
so cute.
I know, I just obsessed. Luke is 3. He just turned 3
Wow.
in August. And then Jack is 7 months old. So 2 boys. I'm a boy mama through and through. I love it. Surrounded by all boys, and I'm okay with that. So yeah, I used to be a teacher. I used to teach 4th grade in Oak Grove, actually in Hattiesburg. And that was before the whole NFL thing. I love to read. I love to run, which is funny you brought that up. I do love to run.
I still don't love to run. I'm
Right.
like,
I know. You either love it or you hate it. I do love
That's
to
right.
run though. And just spending time with my family, that is probably my favorite thing to do. So we are currently living in Chelsea, Alabama, which is a suburb outside of Birmingham, Alabama. My husband is from Birmingham, the Hoover area. So we moved here after college. We lived in Hattiesburg for a little bit, and then we moved over here. My husband plays in the NFL. He's an NFL quarterback, and we are currently with the Minnesota Vikings. And yeah, I feel like that's a good little sum of just where we are right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And you and Nick met at Southern Miss, right? That's special. I remember knowing him and knowing you. And then when you guys got together, I was just like, wow, this is just they're perfect for each other. So
Yeah.
we're so glad that you are with us today. So thanks for sharing a little bit about yourself. And Haleigh, I just want to ask you, I think the life that you live is really unique. Your mama, your wife, but you're doing it kind of in the public eye and just in front of people and all over the country. So just tell us a little bit about this NFL journey, what that's looked like for you guys and how you've kind of been in the midst of it.
Okay, it is definitely a journey. So we met at Southern. Nick and I met at Southern our sophomore year, and it was, love at first sight, which he probably is embarrassed to say. I feel like guys are just funny and we're all lovey-dovey, but it was. So anyways, we met there and got married after we graduated. And the day we got home from our honeymoon, we moved to California. And I had just quit my job teaching. I was fourth grade teacher, and I'm actually a year older than Nick. So I taught fourth grade while he was a senior in college and right in Hattiesburg. So we were there together. But we got home from our honeymoon, and the next day he moved to California by himself. He was trying to make the team. So he didn't get drafted, and he just told me, Haleigh, I'm just going to go and try to make the team. And if I don't make the team, I'll come home. And okay. So I moved in with my parents. This is after we're married. So I moved in with my parents. I just quit my job, kind of thinking like, what in the world is going on? And he went and he made the team. And I was like, okay, so we're going to California. So I've only lived in Mississippi my whole life. So you can imagine moving to California, right, as a newlywed couple is probably like, okay, this is a little different. So we moved out there and we were there for 4 years. We grew to really love it. The weather's great. It's very different. We learned just a lot. It's kind of cool to move somewhere completely different as a newlywed couple. You figure out life together with no outside help, really. You're kind of on your own right from the start. So I think it was actually so good for us, for our relationship, and just going out and just literally like, what's the internet company out here? What's the grocery store? I mean, you're learning everything brand new in a whole new different place. So that was a lot of fun. We were there for 4 years. Nick started, I believe, 16 games there, which is always up and down. 1 week you're on a high and the next week you're on a low, and it's a very emotional career. I know from the outside, everybody loves football. I grew up football in the South, especially. Just football is so big, and when you're on this side of things, it's so much more personal than just a fun football game that you tailgate at or you cheer at. And so we've met some great people doing this journey. We didn't have any family in California with us, so you're kind of on your own. Luke was born in California. We moved, so we came back during like the off season when we don't have games, and we moved back out there. I was 35 weeks pregnant, met my doctor for the first time, and then had a baby.
Wow.
Like, okay, I don't think this is, the way this is supposed to go, but that's how we did it. And it was great. And our motto this whole time has kind of just been like, okay, it's us against the world. Like, all we have is each other in this journey that we're on, because we're moving and we're being, sent here and sent there. And so now we're in Minnesota, and last year we were in Ohio, and then we were briefly in Vegas for a little bit. And we've had our kids in every state, and we have a pediatrician in every state. And you're thinking of all these things like, it feels so hectic, but it's not, because when you're doing it and you think about, okay, it's just our little family against everything. We know God has a plan. He's perfectly written it out for us. He already knows what's going to happen. There's such a peace in that. And I think it's been so great, because as a teacher and just growing up, I've always had a very type A personality. I want to control things. I've got sheets and notes and lists and check them and planners and just all this stuff. And I literally want to plan a vacation like a year in advance, and you just can't do that. You can't plan for anything, but it's been so cool. I feel like I've just chilled out a little bit. God's like, I made you marry this person and put you in this lifestyle because you need to trust me more. And I really feel like that this whole journey has been that, like, why were we worried about this situation, or why were we worried about that? He perfectly has written it up for us, and we're we've seen little like God winks along the way, like, wow, this is so great. We were praying for that for so long, and now we're seeing this happen through this. And it's just been really cool. So we've been in the NFL for 6 years now. This is our 6th year. We're in Minnesota with the
Wow.
Vikings. We're loving it. It's a great group of people, great families are there. We have Bible studies every week. I mean, it's just, we feel really blessed to be there. It's awesome. We are loving it, which is good because with
That's
injuries
awesome.
and moving and stuff, it's easy to feel in a rut kind of, because you're somewhere and then you move, and it's hard to get a community or meet people
Yeah.
when you're constantly going places. So ups and
Yes.
downs to every career, but it's really been a journey. We are loving it and just excited for what's to come next. Who knows where we'll be next year?
Yes.
Always something.
Well, as a fellow mama, like I'm thinking about just how hard it is. I feel like as a mother to find community
Yeah.
in any kind of situation with
Mhm.
having young ones and trying to build that community is such a challenge. So having little ones and moving everywhere with them,
That's
I
right.
imagine it's just this whole other level of a challenge with that.
It can be a very lonely lifestyle, because it kind of forces me to, and I'm so, so grateful that I currently can stay home with our boys and I
Yes.
don't have to work right now. I'm so grateful for that. But it can be very lonely. Nick's schedule is extremely tense sometimes, very intense. He's gone a lot traveling to
Yes.
games. And when we move to new teams, all of it's really on me to handle. So
Yeah.
it can be very lonely. But honestly, having kids, this sounds funny. They're kind of like my little friends. Like I don't feel as lonely because I have
Yes.
them, but in
Mhm.
the sense, it's so hard to get out and do things, and because you have little ones. So the
Yes.
Vikings have been so great because a lot of families have little kids, so we can meet at the park or we can meet at just like kid friendly places where the grown-ups can talk and the kids can play. And it's been a lot easier to create a community there. But also just from year 1 to year 6, I feel like a totally different person. I feel
Wow. Yeah.
like I've matured so much where I'm confident in the community that I already have, where I don't feel like I need more and more. Like I
Yes.
talk to my mom and I have my good close group of friends at home, and then I have Nick, and I feel more fulfilled inside where I'm not getting it from the outside. And that is so a God thing, because
Yes.
it was really tough when I quit my job teaching. Nick went to California and I'm living with my parents, and I'm kind of like, okay, this is not the picture of how it looks when you get married.
Yes.
Your husband carries you over the doorstep and you're in this cute little house and you have your jobs and you come home at night and you cook dinner and all this. And I'm like, okay, I'm back with my parents. I just quit the job that I love. I loved being a teacher. I actually had to, I got offered the Southern Miss cheer coaching assistant coaching job back. So this was like 5 years ago now.
Which you would have been
And it was
fantastic and
something
so
that I
passionate about
loved.
that.
Yes, I
Yes.
had to turn that down, and I was just kind of like, I feel kind of lost. Like I'm so
Yes.
happy with what's going on, but also I feel like I'm losing myself a little bit because I'm
Yes.
having to just totally give up everything. And as a 23-year-old at the time, I was very selfish, in the sense of I just graduated. I have this degree. I'm also a naturally hyper person. So I want to be doing things constantly. And
Yes.
I just couldn't. So Nick went out there and I'm just at home and I have no job. And then I moved to California. I still have no job. I have no friends. We just moved there. And he's trying to make the team, which is stressful enough. And I had to look in the mirror and be like, okay, you can either be really upset about what's going on, or you can be really happy and make the most of it. You're living in California, which you never thought you were. Get out and do something. Like, I cannot just stay cooped up in this apartment. So I went and started working at Pure Bar. And I was the
Yes.
receptionist just to get out and talk to people. And this was before we had kids. We didn't have a dog or anything. It was just me in California and Nick at work. And I really had to be like, okay, Haleigh, this is not exactly the plan that I envisioned myself having at 23. I didn't totally think I would, you know, not be retired, but just not have anything going on at 23. But this is so great also. But it was like an internal struggle with myself, like wanting to do things and having friends at home doing things and thinking like, oh, I could be coaching cheer. I could be doing this right now. And it will make you go crazy if you think about all those things. So that was a big year of growth for me. And just really, we had a Bible study in California. We were with the 49ers and we had a women's Bible study. And that is what I clung to. And that is what kept me going, because every week I met up with women who are also misplaced from their homes, going through the same thing I'm going through. And it was so, so great. I really needed that. But also, I just was so selfish. And at that time, it didn't matter about me. And I knew that Nick could not do his job if I was caught up on myself. He needed me to support him, because the NFL is so hard. And especially on a quarterback, it is such a mind game. It works both ways. He will tell you he cannot play football if he has to worry about me, and I cannot support him if I'm stuck up on myself. So it was like a huge eye-opener. Like, okay, God, you're telling me it's not about me. It's not my time to go chase these dreams that I thought I had. I have to support my husband and be there for him and really just get over myself. Once I call it my come to Jesus meeting. Once I had that, it's been great. I got pregnant and we had a baby, and it's just like, I'm meant to be exactly where I am. And I was trying to control things when I didn't have to. He was, we're so stubborn sometimes, always trying to control things, when all along he is trying to tell us, I know exactly what's going to happen, and I'm putting you here on purpose. And this is exactly where you're supposed to be right now. So that was our first year of marriage, and it was the best year ever. But it was also a huge growing year for me personally. Just learning how to just kind of let go and really get over myself and accept this whole new lifestyle, because it's very different. We live in two places year round, wherever Nick plays, and then we come back home. So we're technically moving twice a year, every year, which sounds a little crazy, but it's been such a blessing. And there's so many amazing things that have come out of this that it's almost like, I cannot believe I acted that way, like those things were so petty, because now I'm just thinking, we've come so far. It's lasted so much longer than probably either of us ever thought, with being undrafted and just as a quarterback in general. It's been really great, but that was a hard year for me. Just kind of, it is hard. And then as a mama, you're, like I said, lots of pediatricians, lots of just in general. And now you're worrying about your kids. Like, are they adjusting well? Do they have a preschool? Do they like traveling, and we're flying, and I'm doing it all by myself. And I'm not complaining at all, because it's been so great, but it's a lot of things that anyone outside of the NFL probably has no idea about. So just all sorts of challenges, but the reward of it has been just made it all worth it. It's been great.
Well, I think that what's so encouraging about your story, Haleigh, is that, I think that first year of marriage for so many people is such a formidable year, regardless of the circumstance you find yourself in. Even if you're in an environment where you're coming home and you're spending time together, you're doing all those things. The first year of marriage in and of itself is so hard, because I think you're right. I'll often say, like, it's like a mirror, because marriage, to me, I was able to hold up a mirror and figure out how selfish I was. It was such a reality check for me personally, and how selfish I was when you begin to kind of merge this life with this other person, and you begin to have to consider their needs above your own. But what's so beautiful about that is when you consider their needs above their own and they're considering your needs above your own, then everybody's needs are being met, right? So
Right.
maybe in this season, it's for you to support Nick and what he's doing. And now you feel called as part of what he's doing and you're on mission with him and what he's doing. But in another season, it may be that he does the same thing for you. And so that's just such an encouraging story that I think can apply to so many people in all different maybe circumstances that they find themselves in. It makes me think of the scripture, Philippians 2, where it says, we're each to consider others' interests above our own. And so I just think about that so often with marriage. And to me, you walked that, like you had to learn that. And what's so beautiful about that passage is it starts at the beginning. It says, to have the same mind as Christ, who having that very nature of God didn't consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing and built up the church. And so that's that kind of same idea. So in that we're getting to be like Jesus. And so that's really, really cool. But I love what you said. It stood out to me. You said, I had to look in the mirror and I had to tell myself, and you called it your come to Jesus moment. Would you just maybe tell us a little bit more about that? Because I feel like so many people probably have those kind of situations in their lives. And how did you kind of navigate that? You said it was kind of this battle within yourself. What did that look like for you? How did you remain joyful and cheerful, as I know your spirit naturally is, in the midst of all that change?
Yeah. So lots of different stories are coming into my mind of the years that we've been through this in different circumstances. That first come to Jesus meeting, that is kind of where my whole mindset shifted on this lifestyle, because it is very different. And while from the outside, it looks very glamorous, and it can be, but it's really just us trying. Nick is just working like anyone else, and us trying to navigate where we're living, hoping and praying that he stays healthy, that we get another year somewhere. So it really is not as like glamorous as you're thinking. So that first come to Jesus meeting was just right after we're married, and I didn't have a job. So I'm just sitting in the apartment all day. Nick's at football all day, and we didn't have kids. So I'm bored, right? And I'm thinking, okay, well, last year I was, teaching, and I had to turn down what I thought was my dream job of coaching college cheer, which, would have been awesome, but was not my time. And so I'm just sitting there and I'm bored. And, I think when you're bored and when you're lonely, your perception really changes about the reality of where you are. And it took me maybe 2 weeks of sitting there thinking, I cannot sit here like this whole year, or I really will go crazy. So I've got to trust that this is where I'm supposed to be. I've got to get out and do something. I'm going to make the most of it, because how awesome of an opportunity this is. And I'm being so selfish. He's working his tail off trying to provide for us in this very cutthroat job. And I'm whining over teaching fourth grade, which can happen 10 years from now, So I basically was like, Haleigh, get over yourself. God has this planned out exactly how it's supposed to be. He knows his will is the right will. Like, just get over yourself and really just let it all go. Why are you worried about what's going to happen tomorrow or a year from now? Like, he already knows it's going to be great, ups and downs, whatever, but just get over yourself. And that is really what I told myself in that instance. I was young and, like I said, selfish, and I feel totally different than that person now, 6 years later. And it's funny because my other come to Jesus meetings have shifted in a sense. So after our 4 years in California, Nick got hurt in a game, and he tore his UCL and had like Tommy John surgery on his throwing arm.
Wow.
And that's a big deal for a quarterback. On your throwing arm, you kind of need that arm, right? So We had only Luke at the time. We only had one little boy at the time. And we had just moved to Birmingham from Hattiesburg. And Nick was hurt and very down. So after he got hurt, the team released him, so they basically cut him. And you never really know how you're going to come back from an injury like that, because it's your throwing arm, and it's all on how you make it. Like, he had to say, okay, I can come back from this. But as a wife, I didn't know if we'd be on another team. And so my whole focus was, okay, I just need to create this very like nurturing and safe sanctuary in our home, just make our home just such a safe place where it's just all positive, and just that's the only way I can help him recover. So he signs with the Browns, which was such a blessing, a godsend. And he was in Ohio, and I was pregnant with our second little boy. And it's crazy because exactly a year after his injury, he started a football game. Like, he got to play, which we never really thought that would happen, because he was the third string there and he was recovering, and that was through COVID and stuff. So he kind of worked his way up, and he got to start and play. And, not all the time do you see full circles, or it may take years to see things come to fruition that God has planned, and why he orchestrates things the way he does. And that was a time that we actually saw, like, okay, exactly a year from when you got hurt, when we thought all this was over and we had no idea what we were going to do. And we were he was so down about the situation that I had to just really keep us up, his spirits up, it's hard when an injury in this lifestyle, it's hard when an injury puts you out. You always want it to be your own decision when you stop playing. So that was a really scary year, but exactly a year to the date, he played.
Wow, that gives me chills.
And did so well. And it was just like, God knew all along that you were going to play again. And I know I'm not a football player and I'm not playing, but our stories are so intertwined, because in a way, my selfish dreams that I had to give up, which sounds so silly because this is my dream now, and seeing him do his dream, it's more than I could even have dreamed of. And to see that he got to play a year after it was so emotional, and I was pregnant. So it just added emotion, right? So, but it was just like, wow,
it was such a good game. Am I right? I think I watched that game. It was such a great game. It was good.
I was like, this is why we do it. This is worth all of the moving and all the hard stuff. And then we went to the Raiders, and we were in Vegas, and I was kind of like, well, this is interesting. We're moving to Las Vegas with 2 kids, and I'm 1 month postpartum. So like very fresh. And I just have this new baby in Las Vegas. I'm kind of like, okay, this is funny, right? Comical. And it didn't totally feel like a good fit. And so we just were praying and praying and praying. When your husband's happy in his job and you're happy at home, everyone's happy. And everyone's in line, and it's parallel with what you're going through, and just everyone's on the same page, and you don't have to worry about each other as much, because that is one thing with the NFL. He's gone so much, and if he thinks that we're unhappy and we're not settling good, it stresses him out.
He worries. He worries.
And then same vice versa. If what's going on at football isn't great, it flows over, and it makes us worry about him. And so we've just prayed and prayed, and the Vikings have just been an answer to every single prayer that we had. And it's so funny, because a year ago when the injury happened, I was trying to control things again. And so I was like, what, I'm going to do this Bible study, and I'm going to start this with some friends that we have in Birmingham. And it was the Seamless Study by Angie Smith. I don't know if you've done that.
Yes, I have. My mom's actually done it, so I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
It's a great study. And we, so I got this book and got our little girls together, and I was like, let's do this study, because I was so longing for a sense of community. And we were talking about that when you move so much, and he plays on Sundays, you're not going to church on Sundays. It's just so hard to kind of put roots down and find accountability partners. And so I was trying to control the situation with Nick doing rehab. I was like, I'm going to do this Bible study. I need this for me, to fill my cup up and just give me some girl time and just kind of lift me up in the situation that we're in, because of the situation he's in. He needed me to be like extra cheerful.
Yes.
More
yes,
than already,
Yes.
So anyways, we did this study and we only did 1 week of it, and then just life gets busy and
Yes.
we never got to finish it. And I was kind of upset, like, man, I really enjoyed the first week. I want to keep doing it. And then, so a year later, so now present day, so this was last year. So now present day, we get to the Vikings, and a sweet, sweet wife reached out to me and told me about the Vikings women's Bible study. And she was like, we're doing Seamless by
Shut
Andy
up.
Smith. And I
That
was
is so
like,
cool.
thank you, God. Like, just another little God wink of you're exactly
Yes.
where I wanted you to be. And we got
Mhm.
traded there. So it wasn't like our choice or anything. God literally took us from a team and put us somewhere else. And I don't know if God's a football fan, So
I think he might be. I think he might
right?
be, right?
But it was just like, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Again, like, I'm always faithful. I'm always like, you can trust me. I mean, we've seen that so many times in the Old Testament and the New Testament of him trying, and us, our stubborn nature, not fully believing that he will do what he says he will do. If you just trust me, just be obedient, just listen to me. I promise. And it was just like, oh my gosh, they're doing the Seamless study. Are you kidding? This is great. And it was just another reminder of, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Like, this is it. This is such a crazy lifestyle. But when you bring it all in, it's really not. You just have to stay grounded. Like, we have our little family. God is in the center of that. And we're like in a boat, and he's the driver, and he's just like navigating us through this whole journey. And that is what we really cling to, because it is in the public eye, and it's so easy to get caught up in all the fluff,
Yes.
and none of that matters, and none of that
Yes.
means anything. And it makes you feel so empty inside. None of that holds any true like value or meaning. But this last trade, it's so funny. I have Luke, who loves to dance, and he loves to dance to literally any song, and like old school rap songs and kid versions, and just anything with a good beat, he's like dancing to. And then I have Jack, and he will fall asleep to Waymaker. And I'm like, how are kids so different, So when we were in Vegas, and Jack's fussing, and I would just play Waymaker over and over again in our kitchen, and I would just hold him and he'd fall asleep. And that is like the song that I just know God put on my heart to play for him, because every verse in that song, I feel like was talking to me that we were going to be moved again, but it was the right fit. Like at the end of that song, it's like, even when you can't see it, I'm working. Even when you can't feel it, I'm working. I never stop working. And that is so true. Like, he is in every part of our lives. And it's so easy to think that, he's just up there hanging out, like, watching us, but he's not. He is working every single day on us. And so those are just things that internally I'm just keep reminding myself. And it's so easy, like I said, to get caught up in things, but that is what I try to stay grounded with. It's just his promise to us, because that's really the only thing that we should be holding on to, is his promise to us.
Yes. Goodness, Haleigh, that is so, so good and so true. That's such a good reminder that I think so many people can apply to all kinds of different situations. And so thank you for sharing that. I want to ask you, I see on your Instagram where Luke is at the games and doing. So talk to me just a little bit about seeing the way that Luke looks at his daddy, because I just imagine that is the coolest thing as you kind of navigate all these changes, to see him going like, wow, this is really cool.
I think he's starting to realize that daddy's job is maybe cool. It's easy to forget because it's just daddy and we're going to work. But Luke loves football, and game days at the Vikings, they do a really good job of keeping the families very involved and it's very family oriented. We go on the field and Luke loves to run out there and see daddy. And it's so special for me to watch because Nick sacrifices so much for us and he works so hard for us, and we could not do anything that we're doing if it wasn't for him putting all of his time and energy into his job and still coming home and being a great dad and a great husband. And watching Luke in those moments is so special because Nick is everything to us, and especially to a little boy in this, in this big football field and all the lights and just all of the stuff. It's just daddy out there doing his job. And it really is super special for me to see Luke looking up to him, because that's the best role model that Luke will ever have, is just right there in our home, and makes me so thankful to have him. And just it is a very demanding job. So those little moments are just so worth it. And when he comes home and he's still so involved, and on his off days, he could, sleep in and rest, but he's not. He's up and we're making cinnamon rolls and we're going to the zoo. And, it's just, it's been really awesome. But yeah, game days are fun. It's a good time. We always hope we win, but we also get to see him in his element and him working hard. And he will tell anyone he couldn't do what he does if we weren't there either. This is a total team effort. And I really don't know how other players do it if they don't have families or a good support system, because it is so hard. And with social media and the media and just, it is so important to have a support system. So those days are so fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, you said earlier, I don't know if God's a football fan, but I want to just kind of I'm going to go back to that for just a second, because what I think is so neat about your story and how it encourages us is that it reminds us that God does care about whatever we're doing. He cares about everything. He is a football fan. He is a fan of anything we are doing that's bringing honor and glory to him. And so it's so neat that he meets us where we are. And I think you guys, your story is a testament to that, of God being concerned with the details of our life. Even if it's not always on a stage in front of people, but it's that Luke is seeing his dad and his mom be Jesus in your home. That's what matters. And so that's so encouraging of a reminder to all of us that God so deeply cares about everything that we're doing.
He is so consistent.
He is in his care for us. When he doesn't have to be, that Bible study would be the one that this group is doing, these little tiny things in our life that just, we can write them off as coincidences, or we can choose to acknowledge that is God with us.
Right.
And I think that those things, acknowledging that, help us to choose that cheer, choose joy in our lives, helps us to remain positive when the things are kind of crashing in around us, or things are uncertain and up and down. Steadiness is finding those little reminders and kind of clinging to those.
Absolutely.
Things.
One of our family Bible verses that we just love and we've always loved is Isaiah 40:31. And it's, but those who hope in the Lord, I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget on camera, but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. And I know Minnesota is it's like a very common place to see eagles, but when we moved there was like an eagle circling our house. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
How amazing. Like just another thing, So seeing the God winks in our journey has been such a huge reminder of his work in our lives and him showing up every second and always playing a part. Like you said, the steadiness of him. And it's been so amazing. So I'm so glad that years ago, I just really looked in the mirror and got all the selfishness out of this crazy lifestyle, because we've embraced it now. And it's so rewarding. Can be very lonely, but it's so rewarding. And it's not as lonely if you're, putting your heart and your love and your focus, like your posture towards God and what he's wanting, like trying to show you. So it's a crazy journey, but we're so thankful for it. It's our journey.
Yeah, and that's so awesome. Well, I have one last question for you that I ask
Absolutely.
everybody on the podcast. Who is your biggest cheerleader or encourager?
Oh gosh, definitely Nick. We have to be a team. That is how this
Yes.
works. His job is so demanding, but he equally acknowledges that my job is too. My job as a homemaker, as a mom, as a wife, providing for our children when he's not there all the time, and just creating this nurturing, loving environment where they feel supported, and always encouraging them. And he knows how important that is too. So he is always encouraging me, Haleigh, you're doing so great. Like, you're the best mom, you're the best wife. And I know from the outside looking in, it's really easy to think like, oh, she's got it so easy. Stay at home mom, they're in the NFL. Like, how hard can that be?
Mhm.
But it's hard being a mom and a wife with any job. And so he is the best encourager. He is the best partner, the best husband, the best dad. And that is, cannot do it without him. And then my mom, my sweet mama, she is the best. She is who I look up to for all the girly stuff, just how to be a mom, how to be a wife, how to speak and talk with a loving tone and not being quick tempered, and just, when your kids are going crazy and you want
Yes.
how to stay calm, and all the daily things, recipes to cook, all just literally anything would be my mom. But Nick is the best partner, and so thankful for him and the way he shows up for us, even when he physically can't be home to show up. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes. Well, Haleigh, thank you so much for spending your time with us today and for sharing your heart and your story. So we just appreciate it so much. And I'm just so glad to see you and to catch up. I'm like, we need to talk more often.
Yeah.
We need to talk more often. So we'll do that. We'll do that. But thank you so much. And be back with us next week for the Choosing Cheer podcast.
Thank you, guys.